least what we're seeing in culture is this continual dissolution of boundaries and distinctions between things.
Hedonism pulls someone out of the potential for that experience, but it perverts.
You're not broken in the Christian sense of recognizing your lowliness and entering into that, but you're made low and then you suffer for it.
We look at the contemporary culture, and I totally agree with you. That's what the church does. It holds the both and together. And when you're talking, what popped in my mind is that the growth in hedonism and pleasure seeking actually erodes the beautiful tension and distinction between beauty and asceticism. And as we become more hedonistic, one, we can look at the informalness of our society. I mean, it's stark contrast to look at the beginning of the 20th century on how the average person dressed versus in the beginning of the 21st century. And again, the informalness of the way we dress, the informalness of the way we talk to each other, maintaining boundaries, something that I kind of reap on a lot and harp on a lot on my channel, is that this is the point of the logos, is that it maintains the order, it maintains the boundaries between things. And that, I would argue, moving forward, or at least what we're seeing in culture, is this continual dissolution of boundaries and distinctions between things. And so as formalism breaks down, as boundaries break down, you're talking about how discipline is tied to the coming of a forward purpose. Well, we're living in a culture where discipline is under attack. Essentially, meritocracy is under attack. That we have new understandings of the way that we move through our societies, and that beauty and asceticism are necessary, because if you just have beauty, you're going to end up in hedonism. You're going to end up in overindulgence, in which we can look at the Roman Empire, we can look at the American Empire, we can look at our own context and culture. And so I think, again, the church, what it does is it holds these things in the proper context, and that beauty is true and beauty is morally right, and morality is true and beautiful, and that all the good, true, and the beautiful, they play on each other. And I think pleasure in the lack of the crucifying of our own will is actually leading to the eroding of all these things in our society to one degree or another.
And you'll see, it's interesting because, you know, that image that I proposed at some point when I talked about the priest that comes in, you know, kind of, you know, a little ratty and a little kind of disheveled or whatever, and then moves into the glory. There's a sense in which the contemporary culture is the very opposite of that, right? It's like, in some ways, the church asks you to come to church broken, right? It's like, come broken, my friend. Like, you know, come in confession, come contrite, come not like this, you know. It's like, come broken, and if you come broken, then you get this glory, you get to participate in this beauty and this glory. And the contemporary world says, go out and like enjoy, right? To do it all, like enjoy and participate in excess, and the result is that you are accidentally broken, right? You're not broken in the Christian sense of recognizing your lowliness and entering into that, but you're made low and then you suffer for it, right? You're broken, and your relationships are broken, and everything gets broken. So it's like a weird inversion and a caricature of each other.
Like, if I could just throw something out there, though. I mean, I think that, so with hedonism, there's something that happens in the sense that, you know, hedonism, it not only pulls someone out of the potential for that experience, right? But it perverts intentionally in many ways, I would submit, because when you begin to, like, for instance, the inability to see the beauty in the ascetic, the inability to see the beauty that is in the poor, right? The inability to see the beauty that is in those things that are not pleasurable, right? And I think that's the thing, is our society conflates beauty with, you know, something that is dazzling or pretty, or, you know, it's not, when the church speaks of beauty, and I think this is one of the things, when the church speaks of beauty, people can mistake it for simply just, you know, that which is grand. And, you know, that which elegant is a good way and a better way, I think, in many ways, to begin to explain to people what beauty is, because elegance can oftentimes be very subtle. The sublime is another way, because, you know, the sublime and there is a at times this catching of the breath at the sublime, you know, this landscape which is terrifying, you know, in its beauty. This, I think this is important because our culture seeks to pull all of that away and just give people, you know, the sugar, you know, the hot pink, you know what I mean, and the ice and you know, and the bling, but that's not beauty, anyways. Like,
Right.
there's nothing beautiful really about that
It lacks
because
transcendence.
it lacks transcendence because of its, but it's absence. What makes it transcendent is that transcendent isn't a disdaining of the whole, but it, something that's truly transcendent not only encapsulates, but its ability to encapsulate it moves above it. It's above it, not that it doesn't disdain it per se. It's above it. It's beyond it. Right? Is another way to I think to see it. And so I think this is really key because what could happen is that someone could begin to see the beauty of the church, and if they don't allow the beauty of the church to do its work, they could very easily begin to lose the ability to see the beauty of the church. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are coming in and if you see beauty and you see only the aspects of the beauty of the church, which are self-serving, right? Order is self-serving, right? We see it, right? All these things are self-serving because we want to be safe, we want to be secure, all those things. But you'll begin to miss it because then you are extracting, um, because of your own desire for comfort, to have those things which are only titillating and appeasing to you.
Right.
But the reality is Christ calls us into, especially he gives us eyes to see where the beauty is found in the ascetic, in the beggar. I mean, if you think about Christ, the Logos incarnate, walking among men, walking in the height of civilization, the Roman Empire. That's the height of civilization on the planet, right? Quote unquote. And he's pulling together, like, and how does he do it? Like, he's talking to the Samaritan woman, and he's talking, you know, to these, you know, and he's doing all these things, alluding to the coming of the Gentiles, and his apostles, they bring in the Gentiles. I mean, all of this is just, it's mind-boggling, but that's absolutely what Christ did in his ministry, was to show where there isn't anywhere where he didn't touch.
Right.
And I think that's really important for us, because if we lose that sense, and people can lose it, especially as people see the beauty of the church as a beacon of, and it is a beacon of safety, but if it's always just that, then there are these places where Christ is calling you and you will not be able to see them, because they're not things that he's forcing upon you. They're things that he's inviting us into. And I think this is why the ascetic tradition in the church isn't just about, you know, the prostration and the bodily experience, but the icon for us in a modern time imposes a fast on us in ways that I don't think people understand. You know, the icon imposes a fast on our senses and calls us to really reject the sugar and the pop and the, you know, the kind of, you know, visual kinetic energy that's given to us. Like, all those things, is it calls us to actually discern that the pop and the twinkle and the hot pink isn't really beautiful. And you need to have the bitter herb, you need to have the salt, you need to have those things to really help you to apprehend that greater scope of beauty, right? I think that's really key, because if we don't have that, then what can happen is people no longer are entering into the heavenly realm, and they do just make it, you know, a place which is like a museum with gold, you know, ornamentation, and they begin to lose what the icon of St. John the Baptist is communicating. They begin to lose the sense of what the church is ushering us into, and then it really does become flat and two-dimensional in the wrong ways, and we lose the ability to enter into that eschatological experience, because now we're just, you know, spectating on some sort of very interesting and exotic kind of amalgam, you know, and that's not what's happening, you know.
Right. Yeah, I would argue that the lack of beauty in our society, coinciding with what you're saying, it's bringing us down to more of a base level of reality and just the pursuit of our pleasures. Because what does in 2023, walking through America, what gives somebody the sense of awe? I mean, is it the Empire State Building? Like, what exactly brings somebody to a transcendent awareness of asking deeper questions about themselves, about the world, about each other? And that's, again, part of the, as Jonathan highlighted, the eschatological purpose of beauty in itself, of aesthetics, and how God is working through the beautiful to reach us directly.